Hi there, welcome to another Q&A session from ATB Guitars. My name's Mike, and today we have a question from Jesse Hicks, who asks us via YouTube. I would be interested to know how you assess a vintage guitar when it comes to you. I imagine plenty of issues, etc. And are there any deal breakers for you? Well, Jesse, thanks very much for the question. It's very good, of course. And yes, we do have quite a few brought to us with deal breakers. And I would go so far as to say that probably 90% of the guitars which are initially described to us with no issues, excellent condition, come to us and we find an issue. Sometimes it's a deal breaker, sometimes it's not. Or we have to sometimes in extreme cases return it because it's just not as it's described. Now, guitars come to us in one or two ways. First of all, they're either brought in by the current owner or they're sent to us after seeing some pictures by courier. I'll deal with the first case first. Guitars which are brought into us are usually brought in by people who are maybe not so au fait with taking pictures using the internet, and they either phone us up or they email us, give us a brief description, which is usually on lines of this is my dad's guitar, he's had it for many years, it's all original, say for instance an Olympic white Strat, and it's in superb condition. We make an appointment for them to come in to bring it to us, and usually when we open the case we can see pretty much straight away what problems are. In extreme cases, I've opened a case and I can tell straight away it's not even a Fender Stratocaster. It's some kind of weird make-up guitar built by somebody out of various parts from various locations with maybe a few vintage parts added on. This happened to us a couple of weeks ago, in fact. But more often than not, people aren't aware that their guitar maybe has been refinished, especially if it's one which has been handed down through generations. You have to bear in mind in the later 60s and the 70s, there wasn't so much of a vintage guitar market, and all of these guitars were just second-hand guitars. They weren't worth anywhere near as much as they are now, and if they got a bit scruffy then people would generally repaint them without a moment's hesitation because they look better and they, in their eyes, it was more like a new guitar, which is what it was when they bought it. So we do get quite a lot of that. When we have a guitar here for assessment, we basically take it out of the case, give it a once over. Usually when we're doing this we can tell if there's any finish issues straight away, and we'll point this out, or sometimes if it looks like it could be an old finish then we have to investigate deeper, but we do an overall assessment when it comes in here. We make sure that the pickups look as if they're original. Most of the hardware is original. The finish particularly is original, and we look to make sure that there's no obvious replacement parts or any breaks in terms of Gibson. We then will, with the owner's permission, we will take the guitar apart, and this is where we start to uncover things which do sometimes turn out to be deal breakers. For instance, if we're taking apart a Fender guitar, we may find that all the pickups have been replaced, we may find all the electrics have been replaced. This is not uncommon, and we may find that there's a humbucker route in the body. None of these are particularly deal breakers, but they do obviously affect the value quite severely. So in these instances we will either say, look, we're really sorry, this guitar isn't worth anything like what you thought it is and we're going to have to renegotiate. Or either that, if a person who owns it is adamant that's the price in his head because he's looked on Reverb and that's how much they go for, so that's what he thinks they're worth, even though it's had lots of replaced parts, he will sometimes say, well, okay, just leave it, and he'll walk away with it. So yeah, it is a bit of a disappointing game doing this sometimes, and it's not very nice doing this to people who think that they've just uncovered a treasure. They realise that they may have this piece which has been in the family for a while. They'll go onto Reverb or eBay and they'll look to see what the asking prices for these guitars are in excellent condition, and they'll think, well, mine is worth that as well. And when they bring it to us and we explain to them what has been done to it and how it affects the value, it's heartbreaking sometimes to see the disappointment on their faces. And this is for the majority of things that are brought into us by hand. Now, the second way we get guitars to us is people send in photographs, they email us good detailed pics, which are really very good, and we can usually tell about 75% of the guitar from pictures, including internal pictures. So we're quite happy to agree a price in advance. They send it over to us on the condition that when it arrives to us, if there's any issues, we will have to get back to them and maybe renegotiate. As I was saying, most of the issues you can see from pictures. There are a few issues which is very difficult to tell from looking at pictures. A good example of one of these is clear coat oversprays. We had a 58 Les Paul standard once, which looked on the pictures like it was all perfectly original, fantastic, even blacklighted well. When we got it here, we could tell reasonably quickly that the back of the neck had an overspray. Now, there's no way you can tell this on the pictures, there's no way from the blacklight, but there's no way that checking marks should be underneath a finish. So this one had a clear lacquer overspray, and it was something which we could only discover just by holding the guitar and feeling it. The owner was not aware of that. It was impossible to tell from photographs, and this is something which, if you're buying guitar from an unknown source through just photographs, it's something you do need to be wary of. Things like that the owner may not be aware of himself, but it does affect the value quite a bit, especially when you're looking at the more expensive side of guitars. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If somebody sends it to us, then we'll basically go through the same process. We'll look at it, we'll take it apart, we'll examine all the pots, examine all the pickups, make sure the windings are correct, they're the original windings. One of the main things we look for usually straight away is the solder joints. It's very difficult to refinish a guitar without desoldering it. And although some people can put the solder back to make it look like it was originally done at the factory, it's very, very difficult to do that properly as well. So we look at solder joints. If the solder joints are original, then the chances are the guitar's not been refinished. The chances are the pickups have never been out as well. And if this is the case, then we're usually onto a good thing. So we will then investigate further. We will take the pick guard off, we will take the pickups out, we will blacklight inside the cavities. We will check the hardware to make sure that it looks, the patina is representative of the rest of the guitar. We've had some instances where the guitar's been pretty well worn and has a brand new looking scratch plate. Obviously that's wrong, and that's something which needs to be looked at. Scratch plates are usually the first thing which starts to wear, aside from the finish. So we'll go into quite a bit of detail, which can take a few hours. We tend to go into more detail when we've had guitars sent to us, because we have the luxury of a bit more time. Once we are happy with this, and once we are happy that there's no major parts which have been replaced, or there's no refinish issues, or in the case of Gibson there's no hidden breaks or repairs, then basically what we'll do is we'll contact the person who sent it to us, and we will happily pay the agreed price, and it'll then be described and then go up on our website for sale. I hope that answers your question, Jesse. If you have any comments, or if anyone has any comments, please leave them below in the comment section. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy what you've just seen, and if you have any more questions, again leave them in the comments of YouTube, or send us a message on Instagram or Facebook. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.